So I've been thinking about doing this video all day, and I really want to get it right because I realise that there is a lot of people who are actually really in pain when it comes to this, anxious avoidant dynamic. And you've experienced some really not nice things, some heartbreaking things when it comes to someone who is showing up as avoidant in your life. And I really get it. I so get it because I have been there. I know how painful it can be to be on the receiving end of someone who is completely unaware of how their avoidance is going to affect me or other people. So in this video, I want to talk about the difference between someone who is avoidant and they just have an avoidant attachment style and, maybe they're aware of that. And then someone who has an avoidant attachment style and is toxic as a result of that, and how you can distinguish between what is going to work for you and what is not. So in this video, bear in mind that I'm not a therapist and I can't diagnose anybody, for example, as a narcissist. That is something that, is diagnosed by a professional. So I can't do that in this video. I know that there is a huge spectrum of behaviours, a huge spectrum of personality disorders, and there's a very blurry line with this behaviour, so it can be very hard to know. One thing that I think is unhelpful is spending hours and hours trying to figure out what this person is. Okay, so if you're watching a lot of videos trying to work out, are they a narcissist? Are they avoidant? Are they this? What childhood trauma did they have? You're putting a lot of focus on them when really your power move is being able to ask yourself, how do I feel? Because that's your diagnosis for how you're going to treat this person in your life and what boundaries you need to set. How do you feel around this person? Something that I see over and over and over again is that people get in an attachment with someone who initially showed up in a really loving, beautiful way, and you felt safe and you felt supported, and then the mask comes off and they start pulling away, and then that activates that anxious wounding, and you start longing for that initial kind of safety that you had in the beginning of the relationship. And often an avoidant will do this at first. They feel safe enough to kind of go all in at the beginning of that connection, not really knowing themselves, or you not really knowing how much they really are investing, because at the beginning you kind of have this early days, let's see what's happening mentality that kind of feels safe to be like, oh my God, I'm in love, and to just go all in. And then when someone pulls back, that can activate this anxious attachment, and it can be very triggering for both people actually when you get kind of deeper into that intimacy in a connection. So the thing is, the difference is that if someone has an avoidant attachment style and they tell you that historically this is what's happened, but they're working on it and they really want to learn how to become secure, then that's great, because at least they have some awareness. At least you can know where they're at. If they're open to being vulnerable, like I said in a previous video, that when an avoidant person is healing, because they start sharing with you what their experience is and what they need. And this helps you to navigate the avoidance triggers that their nervous system will go, whoa, I need to pull back and this is overwhelming for me. But if you're in communication with someone who is experiencing this, then you can navigate through that, and both people can learn to create safety in that relationship. But very often, so much of the time with avoidance, they don't know. They're so avoidant that they haven't spent the time looking at themselves, and they haven't spent the time questioning, why do I feel like this? Where did this come from? How might this affect someone? And avoidants are really the most selfish of the attachment styles, because they have this absolute survival drive to protect themselves from shame, from being blamed, from overwhelm or neglect, which they might have experienced in their childhood whenever, they went to go and share their emotions. There might have been like a chaotic environment, or it just wasn't safe, or no one validated their experience. So they learned to shut it down, and they learned to be very, very independent and to self-soothe. So they use that kind of self-soothing thing as a way to say, basically, when I feel overwhelmed, I'm going to retreat, and this is how I do it, and I don't know any other way, so this is the way I do it, and it's not safe for me to do anything else. So it can come across as very selfish to the other person on the receiving end of it. I should say at this point that no one is bad, no one is wrong, no one is... We don't want to put a kind of accusatory, I'm right, you're wrong kind of lens on this, because everybody's got a past. Everybody's got a way that they grew up trying to protect themselves. We can have compassion for everybody, but your job is not to have so much compassion that you neglect yourself, okay? This is what tends to happen for people who are highly anxious, is that they are so compassionate because that's how they learn to survive. They learn to be so loving, so kind of attuned to the people around them, to navigate the atmosphere, that the way they learn to cope is by catering to other people's emotions, by understanding. This is why a lot of these people end up, in jobs where they're caring for others, like therapists, like coaches, like me, like this is what we do. We understand other people very well, and therefore we want to help, we want to fix, we want to navigate through the storms for other people and with other people, and that becomes part of our identity, which we think is us, which actually isn't. It's a survival mechanism that can get us into trouble. And at points in our life, it's been an amazing winning formula. We have gained that validation. We have gained that love, that connection, often to be disappointed by other people's lack of investment in us because they haven't got the same motive as we do. Okay, so our motive is to feel validated and to feel safe. That's how we regulate. And other people might not have that same motive. So we can feel very disappointed by the way others respond to us. So is an avoidant person toxic? The thing is, there's been a lot of comments on my channel where people have said that an avoidant person has been nasty, has said mean things, has been disrespectful, has sworn. Okay, this is toxic. This is not okay for you. It's not okay for anyone. Any kind of disrespect, I'm going to say it now, no, it's not okay for you. It's not. It's like full stop. You're not tolerating that going forward. And the reason why you have been is because of this very confusing situation where someone has been a certain way, been one person in a way. They've been loving, they've been caring, they've been creative, they've been everything you wanted them to be. They've created this kind of like image of who you believe they were, the person you fell in love with, the idea of who the best version of them. And then they were the complete opposite. And it's almost like your brain just has got two places for these both sides of this person. And so where we feel threatened, we go into freeze. We go into the freeze response in our nervous system. And it's almost like we're so disassociated that we disassociate with that's painful. And we go into our minds and focus on that we want. Okay? And this is where the manifestation community can really screw us up, because it can actually make us gaslight ourselves and ignore behavior that is toxic. Swearing at you, belittling you, patronizing you, calling you names, any of this kind of stuff. And of course, any other obvious abuse, that is not okay. That's abuse. And that is where you draw the line and you say, bye. And I know that some of you might not want to hear that, but you have to set boundaries with this kind of behavior. And I'm here to tell you that that's your job. That's what you've got to do. That's where you've got to protect yourself. You've got to be able to say, as much as I love you and actually see better in you and believe that you can be better in this, I'm not going to stick around for this kind of behavior. So I'm out. That's where someone who has been showing up as avoidant, you might have had so much compassion for them and so much love for them and so much, understanding and empathy for them. You've given a lot of love and given them a lot of patience and time to navigate what's difficult for them. But have they been doing that for themselves? Have they been doing that? Because if they haven't and you're the one doing it, then it becomes very toxic for you. When you're really good with boundaries, you can essentially not experience people's toxic sides because you know immediately, no, I'm out of the room now. I'm leaving. This is enough for me. I will not tolerate this kind of disrespect, and you leave. So you don't have to experience that kind of behavior with someone. If someone's being hot and cold with you, if someone's being there and they're not there, and they've expressed to you that they're avoidant and you feel really sorry for them and you want to, you want to help them through this, it's not all on you. That's the other thing that can feel very painful, is when it feels very compelling to really hear someone's heart and hear how they're struggling. They want to overcome that avoidance, but yet still they're not doing the work and showing up for you in a way that you need. And this is where your work can be, which is where you see this as an opportunity to go, oh my God, I'm going to break this pattern. I'm going to be there for myself and I'm going to say my truth. And you can say this in a really loving way. Even to someone who's being really highly disrespectful and toxic, you don't have to shout back at them, which you will probably feel like you want to, and don't beat yourself up for that if you do, because it's a normal response to someone who, if someone is being rude to you, if someone is being nasty to you, the automatic response that you'll get is fight mode. You want to fight for your, for fairness, and you want to fight for truth. When someone is misunderstanding you and committed to misunderstanding you, you have to remember that energy that you put into trying to get someone who doesn't understand themselves to understand you is going to be wasted until they actually do the work on themselves. Okay, so remember this: if someone is showing up completely committed to misunderstanding you watch out for that, because how often do you have to explain yourself to someone? How often do you have to say, actually, what I meant was this, and no, don't take it that way. That's not what I meant. Your heart is being overlooked every time you do that. So it's so important that you hear me and you know that I know that your heart is being overlooked in this situation where you're over-explaining over and over and over and over again, okay? And you need to learn to validate what you're feeling without this person's approval. For a long time, I was in this situation, and I found that I wasn't giving myself permission to feel what I felt. It was like I absolutely needed the other person to hear me, to say, yeah, actually, I see what you mean, for me to know that what I felt was true, because I hadn't had the experience of my feelings being validated in my childhood, and it was something that I was really looking for to heal in my relationships, but yet I'd matched myself with someone who was highly avoidant and didn't know how to do that, and didn't have the capacity to do it. So there I was doing all the work on myself, trying to be mature, trying to be gentle about how I spoke my truth, trying to own my responsibility of it. But yeah, I was met with someone who was completely not willing to do that and took everything personally, and therefore then attacked me every time I said that I had a feeling that might be negative, that might mean that we had to reflect on a behaviour in the relationship. That was incredibly difficult, and it meant that we just went round and round in circles, and it essentially became a power struggle that meant both of us felt like we were banging our head against a brick wall, and it became really, really toxic and really unhealthy, and it had to stop. So yeah, that relationship then ended because it had to, because neither people could overcome this absolute block from this avoidant person who was not willing to own responsibility. So where you've met an avoidant who is simply not going to take accountability because they haven't got to the point in their lives where they go, oh my God, I have hurt myself and so many people so many times that I realize all by myself that I have to show up differently with this person. Until they've got to that point, you can't convince them to get there. The only thing that's going to convince them to get there is their life's consequences. And maybe you setting boundaries is actually the most loving thing you can do for them to meet themselves. Okay, so this there's a lot, so like I say, there's been a few comments in the videos that I've done recently where people are saying avoidants are narcissists. As I say, I cannot diagnose anybody as a narcissist. I think there is a very specific sort of criteria. Narcissists are rare, but from my understanding, there is a spectrum of narcissistic traits. I also think that to balance some of this out, I think that everyone can be a bit toxic. I think everybody has the potential with where they are unaware to be a bit toxic for everybody. Anxious people can be a bit toxic if they're not aware of themselves. Everybody has that potential to create discomfort in a relationship if they're unaware of themselves and they're not taking responsibility in the relationship. And I think to some degree this is to be expected in relationships, not to the degree where someone's swearing at you, belittling you, patronizing you and talking to you like you're less than them. That's not okay. But where you can go, oh, sorry, yeah, I can see that I did that. I can see how that affected you. And you're right, that was a bit toxic of me. I'm going to own it. I'm sorry. And then you move forward, having learned something that can actually build intimacy and build closeness and help you to create an even more conscious relationship. With narcissism, as I've said in a couple of comments recently, I think there is a difference between people who have got narcissistic traits. Again, I think this is something that a lot of people have, narcissistic traits. I have narcissistic traits. I've got a YouTube channel because I have got a lot to share about myself. You know, my inner narcissist is like, yay, people are listening to me. You know, like to some degree, everybody is has some narcissism in us. And it has a really kind of very negative reputation because there is a small minority of people in the world who are rare, who are extremely abusive and completely unaware of themselves, and those people are really going to cause a lot of damage to the people in their life because they have a very manipulative way of operating in order to get what they want in the world, and the whole world revolves around them, which is extremely uncomfortable to be around. And there's a spectrum with that. And I think some avoidants fall into it, but I don't know your avoidant. We can't diagnose him on this channel. That's something that's going to have to be done by a psychologist or, someone else out there. But you might have a clue. You might have an intuition, a gut feeling, a knowing. But essentially your best guide to if someone is toxic is how you feel, right? Around them. How do you feel around them? Do you even like them? Do you like this person? Do you actually respect their values? I can't tell you how many times I've met clients who are so highly attached to someone. And when I ask them what they really love about this person, they don't really know because they're not actually sure that they even like them as a person. They're just very, very attached to the idea of what this person could be. So what can be toxic is holding on for dear life of some kind of limerence fantasy of how someone was and not who they are actually being. Okay? And the manifesting people who are going to watch this video going, oh no, but you have to see people at their best. Yes, and you can and you do, in order to inspire people to be their higher selves. But to do that, you have to lovingly say no to what isn't okay for you. In order for you to manifest, I suppose, the best version of them, you have to be someone who calls this person higher. Okay? You have to be someone who will not allow that version of them into your life. And you do that lovingly because you see the potential of who they could be. But in the meantime, it's a no from you for any kind of behavior that is going to disrupt your peace. At the end of the day, what I want you guys to feel is very, very protective of your peace. And I know that in this journey, that's not always easy because you've been attached to someone, you've loved someone, you've had a connection with someone. There's been a massive, massive disappointment that is not so easy for someone to just say, set a boundary and go. Like, that's not what I'm saying. Oh my God, trust me, I know that that is not easy, and it's not something that someone can say to you and you just do. You have to be ready to set boundaries, basically. In time, through experience, often through the experience of not setting boundaries and being hurt by that, you actually do get to a place where you're like, this is my voice, this is my truth, this is who I am, this is what I want, and it's not that. It's not this avoidance, it's not this toxic behavior, it's not this narcissism, it's something much more conscious than that. Okay, so like I say, there's a huge spectrum of what's toxic, what's going to really, really hurt you, and what's just fairly normal in a relationship. The difference is the self-awareness and the consciousness and the willingness to grow. Does your person have that? Do you like their values? Do you respect them? These are things that you need to ask yourself. Because I remember that book, The Chimp Paradox. I don't know if you guys have read it. And I remember one of the lines that stood out to me and that I've always remembered is, one of the surest ways to upset yourself is to go against your own values. So homework for you all, go and write down what your values are. Write down 5 things that you value, respect, love, creativity, adventure, fun, silliness, connection, loyalty. What are your things? Write down 5 things and ask yourself where you've been going against those things by tolerating something from someone that you don't necessarily like. Because that will really unsettle you. Your inner self will go, oh, I don't like this. And you'll feel very triggered. So you don't go against your own values. Ask yourself these questions that I've asked you in this video. You deserve respect as a bare minimum in a relationship. You deserve someone who is mature enough and willing to at least learn how to have healthy conflict, because inevitably in every relationship there's going to be some conflict because you're 2 different people from different walks of life, different opinions about things. Sometimes you're going to disagree on things, so you need to be able to be with someone who's mature enough to own their responses and their responsibility of their emotions and their reactions, because if you don't, it will feel very threatening, and there's a lot of defensiveness. When someone is defensive, it makes you defensive, and it's just like this battle of defensiveness, and everybody's going blah 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 blah, I'm right, and you're wrong, which will never lead to connection, will it? So one of the things that you really need to know to define if this person is toxic for you or not is their willingness to learn healthy conflict. They don't have to know it all right now, but there has to be some kind of willingness to want to know about healthy conflict, because where they just want to be right and make you wrong, that's going to feel really intimidating. It's going to make you feel really small, and it's going to make you feel very powerless. So you have to be able to know when that's happening, to be able to call it out and to be able to set boundaries. In summary, some people can be avoidant and they can match with someone secure, and therefore the secure person is less affected by the avoidance because it doesn't activate them in the same way, and the avoidant can actually end up becoming more secure within themselves through being with someone who is secure. But equally, sometimes the secure person can end up becoming anxious because of this person's avoidance. So it just depends on your response. The question you need to ask yourself is, how do I feel with this person. It's not necessarily about them, but more about how you are responding and how you are feeling in response to this person's avoidance. Some people can be avoidant and they're not necessarily toxic because they have such a high level of willingness and self-awareness about that avoidance, and they really want to overcome it. Therefore, you can create that safety with each other and a shared goal to overcome each other's patterns, which can be a really beautiful thing. So that's great if that happens. The way where someone is toxic is where they're completely unaware of themselves. They are shutting down, stonewalling you, not explaining themselves. They're being rude, they're being nasty, they're being highly defensive because they have so much shame in them that they're projecting it onto you, and you're feeling small, not good enough, that you've got to explain yourself, and that this person is going la 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 la, I'm right. That is toxic in my opinion. And and maybe there's a bit of both in that case. So really what I'm going to leave you with is that question again that I've asked you a few times. How do you feel around this person? That's your answer about if they're toxic for you, and if they're toxic for you at this point in your life. Okay, that's what you need to go by. And some of you might be thinking, yes, but I feel like this because I've got an anxious attachment style. Yeah, so you're highly likely to be really triggered by avoidance, and you need someone who is self-aware enough to be able to navigate that. You see what I mean? That doesn't mean that this can never happen, but it means that your work for you in the meantime is being able to set boundaries. Okay, so important. It's going to change your life for the better, honestly. So if you would like any help, you would like someone to talk to you about your personal situation, I am here. This is what I do. I would love to help you on this journey, and thank you so much for everybody who is here. It's been amazing to meet so many new people in the last couple of weeks. If you would like any support, group support, I've got my 2-week Christmas holiday support group for people who might need some extra support over the Christmas period. I know it's a bit of a difficult time. We're going to have so much fun in this group, so I'd love to see you there. There's more information about all the things that I do, the coaching packages, on my website, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.